Hello, I hope you're well. I hope you're going to enjoy this video about happiness. It's another unscripted video, so let's see how it pans out. I've got some notes to my side to give it some sort of structure. But yeah, basically it's going to be me thinking out loud about happiness from my own autistic point of view. So the first note on my list is the word purpose. So having a purpose makes me very happy, and I think that relates to me being autistic, having a very logical take on life. Well, I like to think it's logical. I like things to make sense. I like to be productive. I like to have a purpose. Having a purpose makes me happy. And I've been thinking about it a lot recently, particularly in relation to work. I mean, work takes up a huge chunk of my week, takes up a huge chunk of other people's week. It's important to have a job that gives you purpose. And yeah, I've been thinking about that in terms of my day job. We all want to be fulfilled, and I'm not getting any younger, and I'm thinking, what could I do next? This is a conversation I've had with my managers, so I don't need to be too coy about it. Um, you know, I like to, wake up in the morning thinking, yeah, I'm going to achieve something worthwhile, and it's got to a point where I'm thinking, well, what's coming up next? What am I going to look forward to doing? But purpose isn't just about working and earning money. I get a lot of satisfaction from being involved in politics outside of my day job. I have a job that is a political job. I'm a local councillor, and that is often very fulfilling. It gives me a sense of purpose. I like to think that I'm making a difference to people's lives. So, having a purpose is core to my happiness. If I'm helping other people even in a small way, it might be, getting a litter bin installed, or I saw a chap last weekend. I wasn't particularly helpful. He had a benefits claim to make, and it sounded to me like he sorted out what he needed to do, but I think he just wanted someone to listen to him. And he was a really interesting, entertaining chap. So I probably got more out of that conversation than he did. But yeah, I had a purpose to go and see this chap and just listen to him and learn from him. Uh, so yeah, having a purpose is really, really important, and I really ought to mention my family. Yeah, my kids in particular give me a very strong sense of purpose. When I'm feeling very down about things, which is unfortunately quite frequent, I think of my kids. There was one time at work I was feeling very down, and I went into the disabled toilet, and I was just looked at photos of my kids on my phone, and it really picked me up. It's like, yeah, this is why I'm here. I need to do this job. I need to do the things to make their lives better. So, I really ought to highlight how important my kids are because they give me purpose. So, the next one I want to talk about is flow. And this is something I've stolen from Blind Boy Boat Club, who is an autistic comedian, writer, musician from the Republic of Ireland. And he has this wonderful podcast. I would urge you to check it out. I've already recommended it to Orin. And Orin, who I met through this channel, I have not met him. He's, in the States, he's across the Atlantic Ocean. He said he enjoys it. So I think you'll enjoy it as well. And he talks about flow, him being at his most happiest when he's in the flow, when he's researching for his podcast, when he's writing a short story. I presume when he's making music. The way he talks about flow is just brilliant. It's just, I can completely recognize how happy he feels. I mentioned in another video quite a few months ago about how much I enjoyed making a really silly horror film called Teddy Scare. And it is really silly. There's no script. It's awful. But I had the best fun because I was making something and I was having so much fun making something. It was almost beside the point whether the film was going to be good or not, and it really is not good. But I had so much fun. It was the process, the flow, the happiness that I felt in the flow state. And yeah, I tried to capture that feeling like Blind Boy Boat Club talks about, tries to recapture that feeling of happiness in the middle of flow, in the middle of creation. So, making films, making silly house music on my computer, editing YouTube videos. It's the process. It's being lost in the process. Makes me really, really happy. So congruence is the next thing on my list. The next thing that makes me happy. So congruence, aka harmony, and I've got next to the word harmony, agreement. It's consistency. It's feeling that what you're doing in life is consistent with what you believe, what you enjoy. And it's something that relates to purpose, I think. Probably ought to have been second in my list. But there's no script, so I'm just thinking out loud and seeing if something vaguely entertaining, interesting, or relevant comes out of my mouth. But congruence, harmony. So doing things in life that match up with your sort of core beliefs and values, and interests. And this is really important to me. I'll talk about work again. Um, if I just say to myself, I'm working to ultimately make people wealthier than me even more wealthy, then that's not going to be congruent with what I feel is important in life. But if I remind myself that what I'm doing is to help other people live fulfilling lives themselves, then that's congruent with my own core beliefs about my place in the world and how people should treat each other, which sounds incredibly pretentious, but it's real. Whether it sounds pretentious or not, it's real. I have to, what I'm doing has to match up with what I believe. What I believe has to match up with what I'm doing as much as I can control. So congruence and harmonizing what I do in this world is really, really important. It's fundamental to my happiness, because if what I'm doing doesn't match up with what I believe, then I'm unhappy because it's dishonest, inconsistent, immoral even. So congruence is on the list, deservedly so. Peace is probably a fairly predictable one to add. I could waffle on about politics, global politics, but that said, I do think about it a lot. And you could say, well, why do you think about that? Because, you're not in control of things that are happening outside your front door. And again, this is why, as an autistic person, I enjoy being indoors so much, because I am in control, and being in control of my surroundings is core to the state of peace that I'm in. So I'm talking about peace within my own home and my immediate surroundings and in the world in general. I want peace where I am, literally, physically where I am. Not necessarily sort of absolute silence. I mean, I've probably got the headphones on, listening to the same track over and over again, which is a common autistic stim, and probably writing a YouTube video or firing off emails to members of parliament, in that flow state. That's peace. It's not necessarily absolute silence. In fact, it usually is not absolute silence in my case. It might be for you. You might, need that silence to equal peace. And that's when you are your most happy. But for me, peace is more about control and, being able to do what I want to do, which sounds horribly selfish when I say it out loud. But yeah, I have to talk about peace in terms of global politics. I can't just detach the rest of the world from my mind. I have very strong views on what's going on in other parts of the world, and I just desperately wish that people would just get on, and no, I don't have direct control over that. But as far as I'm concerned, we're all part of the same family, one human race. And it upsets me when people are very obviously being hurt, and it doesn't have to be that way. So that knowledge that they're being mistreated and that people are behaving in a way that it doesn't have to happen, that makes me less happy. So, peace is core to my own happiness. And related to that is fairness. But I have got not a scripted example to support what I'm saying here, but it's something I did think about while I was thinking, well, what am I going to say about happiness in this video? And there was one time at work, I keep talking about work, but anyway, this is in a job that I had years ago. I was very unhappy in this job. One thing that made me unhappy was someone was in a meeting and they were looking at their phone, like not very discreetly under the table. And it was a really small office room. It's like a cupboard. And there's 4 people. It was myself, this chap who was playing on his phone, and there was 2 people on the other side of the table. And I just remember how, thinking how rude it was for him to be sending text messages on his phone or whatever he was doing. And like I said, there was 4 people in the room. So, surely the other 2 people noticed what he was doing. And yet they just carried on as if it was a normal business meeting. And I'm absolutely certain that if I had done what he was doing, I would have been told off. I'm absolutely certain. And you might think, oh, you're just being paranoid. No, I don't think I am, particularly as I now know that I'm autistic. And when I look back at previous episodes of my life, I think I was mistreated. I was ignored, misunderstood because of that uncanny valley, that double empathy problem. People just sense that I'm not quite on their wavelength. They might not know for a fact that I'm autistic, but they've judged me almost in a split second. And I think that I would have been judged negatively if I'd been playing on my phone. There'll be other better examples that I'll think about after this video. But the point I'm trying to make is that fairness matters to me. If people are fair, if they treat people as they would like to be treated, if they treat me same as that person on their phone, if that person had been told off for being on their phone, and if I'd done the same and I was told off for being on my phone, that's fair because we're both doing the same thing. We're both being treated the same way. So yeah, it's not the best example, but I think you understand what I'm saying. It's about there not being a sort of a hierarchy of who deserves respect over other people. Like we all deserve respect. That's fairness. Possibly that's what I should have put on my list. Respect. But I think respect and fairness go hand in hand. So when people are unfair and when there is this imagined hierarchy of who's more important than someone else, then that's not fair and that makes me unhappy. So let's reverse that. Treat people as we would like to be treated ourselves. That's fair, and that means that all of us are more likely to be happy, surely. And finally on my list, acceptance. And this is probably the most dare I say, autistic thing on my list, because acceptance as a late diagnosed autistic person is something I think about a lot. A big reason why I make these videos is, that I want myself to be accepted as an autistic person, but I want to help other autistic people feel accepted. I want to help educate neurotypical people about autism so that they are more inclined to accept autistic people. Now, my viewing figures are pitiful. We're talking a handful of people watching my videos. But that's fine because, if one neurotypical person watches this video or one of my previous videos, then, I'm hopefully helping them to understand that autistic people are not lesser than, they're not strange, they're human beings, but with a different lens through which they see the world. yes, they might have certain challenges that occur because they're autistic, and likewise, they might have strengths because they're autistic, just as a neurotypical person would have challenges and strengths because life is hard. Now, thinking out loud, you might think, well, hang on, that's minimizing the challenges that autistic people have. Perhaps so, but unintentionally. And I'm not trying to make out that, well, I'm deliberately not suggesting that some people's problems are bigger than others. And you might come back at me and say, hang on, no, but autistic people have it harder than neurotypical people. Well, again, thinking out loud, I would say a lot of that is because autistic people are not accepted. And if we were, the challenges would be lesser, fewer. So, probably getting myself into a muddle there, but this is the occupational hazard of doing an unscripted YouTube video. I am not going to edit. I'm just going to add maybe a few graphics. So maybe Blind Boy, I'll put him in because he's a character. But acceptance makes me happy. Acceptance of other autistic people makes me happy. Acceptance of everyone, autistic or not. We've only got one go at this life. It just makes me very unhappy when people go out of their way or flippantly disregard other people because it's convenient to them, or just because they're bored, or sadistic, or whatever the reason might be. To not accept people because they're different is outrageous and unfair. If we accept people for who they are, then people are going to be happy. The previously judgmental people, they'll be happier because they're not harboring such hate in their hearts. So, yeah, acceptance is core to happiness. So I hope that was a vaguely entertaining video. Well, I'm still doing it. I'm still in the video. What am I talking about? I'm talking about it as if I've edited it and I'm doing a commentary, director's cut. I hope this is an entertaining video to some extent, at least. And if you have any thoughts, please do share. Bear in mind, this is a video about happiness. So if you've got any negative thoughts, that's probably going to make me unhappy. And to have a think about that one. The constructive criticism, I'm all ears. But if someone commented on my previous video, if like them, you're just going to make random accusations, I'm just going to block you. So yeah, don't do that because it's unnecessary, it's unfair, it's unkind, and it's not the spirit of this YouTube channel. So anyway, take care of yourself. Thoughts, ideas, suggestions, constructive criticism, I'm all ears. Let's look after each other. Take care. Look forward to seeing you for the next video.